Greetings, users and programs. This is Etari Living Sacrifice continuing 80 days. Been having a blast with it. We're about to finish up day 15. Alright, so we have to choose between truly we live in an age of wonder. This could tip the balance of power. I don't honestly think I'm day 15. I don't know if I'm doing well or not. I can't tell. Truly live in an age of wonder. Unimaginable to our ancestors. Ever since I came into Monsieur Fogg's employ, I had experienced more than my share of marvels, and as the Camartage pulled out of the station, I resolved to savor each and every one. Your character is now slick. I guess I get more... I see you have hot French blood in your veins. How tiresome. I guess I get more options the more characteristics that I have. Dozens arrested in constitutional riots in Istanbul. Camartage. So I picked this one because it goes straight over the water. First day was short because of our evening departure, so we had just about enough time to secure a compartment and... Let's see, he's at perfect health. Observe... Oh, shoot, I just had a body twitch or something. Observe our fellow passengers. A thick-set janissary from the Turkish Guard and a striking red-headed woman who traveled without a veil. Both were settled into their seats, eyes closed, and so did not appear open to conversation. Thus I let them be, wondered idly if they had pockets worth picking. What? Let them be. No, he can't steal things from people. How does he lose health? Guild spokesman confirms bomb in soup not aimed at Fogg. Lost 2 health there. I'm not sure what that was about. With another long day of foggish calm beckoning, I fell into conversation with a thick-built janissary, the unveiled, red-haired woman, eager to talk of engines and gauges and driver diameters. She told me her name was Ksenia Petrovna Volkova, and I asked her about the Camartage, how she knew so much about locomotives. Oh, I'm a scholar of many things, she smiled evasively, then gave me a challenging look. Do you truly believe the Persians have a revolutionary new engine? Surely they would not lie. I think they would like us to believe in it, I said thoughtfully. It all seems very political, does it not? Ksenia lifted one eyebrow. Everything is political, she told me seriously, before she deliberately shifted conversation to lighter matters. Curious. Curiouser and curiouser. Oh, shoot. The Camartage stopped for 5 hours at the Iranian border, while various uniformed inspectors scrutinized our papers and peered into our faces. Intriguingly, Ksenia was nowhere to be found during the bureaucratic inspection, and only reappeared in our compartment as the Camartage started to pull away beyond the border station. I guess I shouldn't be pulled out. Kept watch on Ksenia, stretched my legs. He excused herself and to go to the conveniences after a look at her pocket watch. I followed her. Despite Monsieur Fogg's raised eyebrow, my curiosity, I admit, overrode my politesse. But Merde, when I arrived, the conveniences were empty. My suspicions confirmed, I went searching. The Camartage was bristling with uniformed guards who grew more unfriendly as I approached the front of the train. 2 taciturn fellows blocked the entrance to the engine car, no doubt guarding the secret new designs from prying eyes. I tried to catch a glimpse inside. Just then I saw a flash of red outside, and hurried to the window. To my shock, Ksenia was hanging from the side of the train. She looked at me through wind goggles and lifted an arm to wave, and I saw her hand was covered in a twisting metal gauntlet. Or I gestured at her to grab back on before she fell. Is she an assassin? Covered in rubber suction cups, much like those on a squid. As I watched, she determinedly began to sucker her way towards the engine car. I considered calling a guard. I was confounded, but impressed by her mad daring. I stumbled back to my compartment in a daze. It was at least an hour before Ksenia appeared, cheeks ruddy, but otherwise not a hair out of place. You look flushed, madame. Madame, I suggested calmly. Do you like squid? I adore calamari. She agreed. without the slightest hesitation. I was starting to believe I had imagined the whole adventure until she added, particularly the tentacles, with those ingenious suckers. Monsieur Fogg looked baffled by the conversational turn, but we exchanged barbed repartee until all too soon the Camartage pulled into the Tehran station. Unsurprisingly, perhaps, the red-haired adventurers had disappeared. By the time I gathered up our bags, but by then I was too entranced by the sights and smells of the ancient city of Tehran, the capital kingdom of Iran. Relations with Fogg have deteriorated slightly. Why? What caused that? I don't get how that... The absinthe. We're not going to Moscow, so we might as well sell this. We can sell this. I'm not going to any of these places, I don't think. I guess if I have these things... I don't need the money. Might as well buy everything. You completed English wardrobe should help negotiate times of upper-class journeys. Don't need the money. Plan. Arrives when? Departs in 4 days. Negotiate. No charge in 2 days. Ah, very nice. Alright, well, let's explore. To say the capital of the Persian Empire is modern would be to deny the unparalleled glory of its ancient monuments and palaces. Yet, Bandor-class airships hummed in the sky, jewel-beaked, copper-bodied birds sang from the branches of trees. They hummed in the sky like scimitar moons, and mechanical palanquins adorned with enamel and goldwork carried officials, poets, and lovers up and down the gaslit avenues. The Qajar Shahs ruled over an empire almost constantly at war, but the recent alliance with the Ottoman Sublime Porte, though you would not know it, had allowed the city to prosper despite border disputes with Russia and British Indies. The city itself, a garden of culture and art, protected from the skirmishes along its borders. I sat in the cafes with poets as they dueled each other with words and competed for patronage. We'll pass the night here. Let him regain. I wandered the streets once more. The poets and musicians retreated as night fell. I sought out engineers and found them in cafes drinking heavily sweetened coffee and racing their inventions across tabletops. I sat with the shard engravers, spoke with the metal forgers. Shard engravers, as they took turns to scratch minute symbols on a piece of colored glass. Is that decoration? Is that a device? They smiled and one lifted the shard, turning it this way and that in the gaslight. This is an automaton's brain, or it will be once it's complete. But surely it is impossibly complex. Their brains are crafted by hand? Detailed, certainly, one woman replied. This is true, a young bearded man agreed, eyes bright behind his jeweler's loupe. The artificers only allowed those with the steadiest hands to become engravers. It is fine work, I remarked. The finest, the middle-aged fellow by the name of Rafik remarked. In other cultures, a copper lily may be enough for an artificer to complete their education, but we all apprentice to other guilds and craftsmen. To truly make automata, We must be jewelers, architects, shipwrights, cobblers, doctors, and dancers. But then you must learn endlessly. What does dancing have to do with artificing? You must also learn the skills. Must you also learn the skills of a valet? Rafik smiled. Is that not what human culture is? Is that not what Tehran is? Endless learning, poured into buildings and gardens and inventions. Exactly, I swallowed. Are you sure you're not a poet? I think I will look at automata differently now. We'll make civilized men out of you Europeans yet. Rafik flashed me a grin, taking the sting out of his words, and we clinked our coffee glasses together. Someone further in called out to Shahanshah, and we all raised our cups, and some wag added, "May he live forever under the watchful eye of the Prime Minister," and everyone laughed. That is my abiding memory of Tehran, a room full of men and women in the hazy light, a place where people could be both right and humane. All at the same time, a rare thing in this world of ours. It is a city, I'm sure, that will stand forever. What is this? Must be somebody else. Tomorrow at 8 a.m. Alright, well, let's go. Embark. Hire more luggage space. Well, that's awesome that the gentleman's clothes allow you to basically get free passage sooner. The Carmartage has extended its route, and it now ran from Istanbul through the Persian Empire all the way to the British frontier city of Kabul. I was glad to be leaving Tehran. I was sad to be leaving Tehran, a place of true possibility. Still, the Carmartage left us in doubt that we were leaving. Its engines fired, and we rocketed, left us in no doubt that we were leaving along its rails. Dang it. Let's converse. Alright. Geometric equipment. Can sell it in Agara. I am so confused. One of the Armenian porters, I can't tell, I thought I was passing over water. One of the Armenian porters nudged his Pashtun friend and muttered something uncomplimentary as he watched me struggle to load our things into the luggage car. I focused upon my task. But they continued to stare at me in discourteous fascination. "You look very strange for a servant," said the Armenian fellow, whose name turned to be out Abdajan. I looked down. I looked the man level in the eye. "Well, I am a strange sort of servant. I am a perfectly a la mode. You look rather strange yourselves." I admitted, thinking of the unconventional services I had performed for my master since we had departed London. They only laughed pityingly in response. Monsieur Abdajan tucked a purple lamb's wool pashmina around my neck. "Perhaps this will help," he said, rather hopelessly. I stroked the soft fabric. As I returned to my compartment, Monsieur Fogg made no comment, distracted by the whistles and shouts which marked our departure from Tehran. The pashmina scarf would fetch a good price in Agra should we decide to sell it. I woke to the gentle rumble of the train and dressed quickly, deciding to wind the scarf around my neck. In dashing style, Monsieur Abdajan was entirely correct in his sartorial assessment. The color suited my complexion very well. Monsieur Fogg took one look at me and raised an eyebrow. "Very vibrant," he remarked. "It was a gift. Would you like it, Monsieur?" I asked, holding the pashmina out to him. Monsieur Fogg hesitated a moment, looking at my outstretched hand, then took the scarf with calm deliberation. "Thank you, Passepartout," he said, equably tucking it away. I was stunned. "Will you wear it?" I asked, emboldened by his acceptance. He gave me a long look at my request, as though surprised by it. "I will keep it," he said cautiously, but he did not refuse point blank. I was still flabbergasted by the time Kamar Taj pulled into Herat, on the border of the Persian Empire and the frontier of British Indian colonial lands. Relationships with Fogg have strengthened slightly. Some of our possessions could earn us well here. Where am I? I would need a lot more room. Oh well. Three or 4 days. Oh, let's go here. Arrives tomorrow at 8 a.m. Let's explore. I had the good fortune to encounter the toy maker of Herat, one of the most famous artificers in the modern world. His shop was airy and bright. I looked at the man himself. An unassuming gentleman in his 70s, tall and spare. His arms were spotted with burn scars, on his fingers were calloused, but his large dark eyes were lambent with intelligence. Greetings, toy maker. You make only toys? You put a lot of care into unnecessary things. Welcome, I think you are new to Herat. What makes you say that? Indeed, I'm on a journey around the world. His hand closed into a fist. What for, eh? What for? To win a wager, for my master. For the adventure. For the adventure. I once traveled the world, he said, softly, but now I cannot leave the borders of Persia, or I would be arrested. But you are a toy maker, by whom? The Artificers' Guild. His voice turned bitter, and he smiled at my surprise. I once broke faith with them. I made destructive weapons of war to defend my Durrani masters against the British Army's invasion in the Kush. Now, as you see, I make toys. His manner was so open and direct that I wondered if he still plied his trade, watched his eyes and saw deep regret. For ills that could never be undone. We are all pawns in the players of the great game, he remarked. We can win, but only if we remove ourselves from the board. So you have given up artificing? I am no one's pawn, and if others do not remove themselves? Of course not. I could not, he settled his hands on his work belt, but I swore my hands would only make innocent creations. So you see me now, a toy maker. And that is enough for you, and if war comes again? You are defending your home, I said. That is no crime. That is the cry of every soldier who lifts a rifle, he retorted, though his shoulders eased a little. Still, he muttered, the British should not have come here. I see you do not apologize. He shook his head once sharply. Why apologize? My entire life is a long, terrible apology. I asked him for assistance on our journey. He laughed and shook his head. How could I help? You're an artificer. You must know the secrets of this city. Anything you know might help us. I know many things, young man. It would take a lifetime to tell you of a fraction of them, he laughed painfully. Perhaps you should head to Delhi. Savakar lives there. They say she has built herself a new airship, even faster than the ones made for the Raj. There was a sting in his voice at the mention of her name. Should head to Delhi. I resent her for something, but I did not care for an old man's misery. Delhi. You gotta remember that. She aided her masters and it is celebrated. I aided mine, and now my tale is told as a warning to young artificers. I'm a mortality tale, and she is a hero. She built airships and you built weapons. She worked for the stronger power. You were lovers. I do not think I know. You were lovers, I declared. His face creased with pity. Is that the only relationship you can imagine between a man and woman? He asked. We were colleagues, rivals, perhaps even friends once. Whether we are lovers or not pales into insignificance beyond that. I took my leave from the toy maker, wondering if I had been too harsh. My conscience clear. Though I knew I had disturbed his pitiful peace. Do all men deserve contentment? Perhaps. Perhaps. I do not know. Delhi. Alright, so we're gonna go to Delhi. Arrives tomorrow, arrives Thursday. See, Antalya and Antananarive, or whatever it's called. Doesn't look like I'd be going to either of those cities. Wish I could search for cities. Oh, Antalya I passed by there. Antalya. So are they on a camel in the water? I don't get it. And I'm passing... Huh. Oh well. We'll pass the night here. We stayed in a hotel in the shadow of the towering citadel built on a spur of rock like Noah's Ark. Beached far above the sea. The people of the city largely ignored it. It dominated the skyline. A symbol of Durrani authority in a city that had once been the capital of the Persian Empire. As night fell, I was quite sure I saw a rocket fire from the walls and up into the skies, but what it meant, I do not know. What? What? Did I miss it? Did I miss it? I'm so confused. No way. Oh crap. What did I do? Get some more money. I guess going to the thing screwed me up. Garanti master who had a lost purse which I helped to find and who then informed me that the quickest way to Karachi is via Quetta. I thanked him. He laughed and went on about his fares. Ah, I just wasted a whole bunch of time. Helped the kitchen staff, made 73 pounds. What the hell is going on here? guess I don't care which... Alright, so that does nothing. Arrives today. Embark. Hope I didn't lose the game because of that. There's no going back to an older save file. We reboarded the Carmitage at Herat, having taken a different and longer route since arriving at Tehran. Passepartout, did you say? What a strange name. Delhi. I don't know any of these cities' names. Had our papers inspected by a Persian custom officer with a pair of magnificent extending spectacles made of polished brass and a head of unruly hair. Engraved with a Farsi script along the arms, he inspected our documents while turning a small lever behind his ear. A pair of smoked glass lenses slipped over the clear ones, and inspected our documents once more. "You are widely traveled," he remarked. "We are traveling around the world." I blurted, and could nearly hear my master refrain from rolling his eyes. "Oh well, it is none of my business," the official remarked philosophically. "Your papers are in order. Good luck with your travels." We repeated much of the same experience with the British customs official a few hours later, so we arrived at Kabul, thoroughly inspected and officially stamped. Yeah, that would be the hardest part. So are we not in the middle of the water? I'm very confused. Calcutta. Field glasses, air traveler's set, elastic wallet, urban traveler set, engineer's set, hand-woven carpet. Gentleman traveler. Let's see here. I can now have the full... I doubt I'm going to be going the way of the America, but I'll keep it for now. There's no point in selling it. Benares, Halil, and Chittagong. Benares, Halil, and Chittagong. Well, there is Calcutta. Probably will Chittagong. I should have bought it. Arrives tomorrow. We'll pass the night here. Explored the city. We were rather unceremoniously seized by a escort of British infantry and marched along the walls of Kabul, up the mountain ridge into the fortress of Bala Hissar. Monsieur Fogg protested our treatment and I stayed silent, as befits a gentleman's valet. We were presented to a small bespectacled gentleman in a palatial office which looked rather more like a court despite the piles of books and surveyor's equipment littering the floor. He gave us a glance over his spectacle rims. I am Mr. Smythe, second assistant political officer to the British mission here. I do not have the pleasure of your acquaintance. You have a fine office. I glanced at my master. He straightened his cuffs, but otherwise looked as though he might have been out for a mid-morning stroll, and had wandered by merest happenstance into an Afghan palace fort. I am Mr. Phileas Fogg, and this is my valet, Passepartout. I am a subject of Her Majesty, and passing through Cabal with no small urgency. Urgency, the political officer's eyes flashed behind his lenses. Pray expand a little upon the nature of this urgency, Mr. Fogg. I did not like his tone. He had the measure of a cool-eyed master. Of my cool-eyed master, that much was certain. Monsieur Fogg was not used to being on the other side of the interrogation table, and I felt rather protective of him as Monsieur Fogg explained his wager and a resultant breakneck trip around the world. I could see Smythe growing more astonished with each word. Finally, he took off his glasses and tapped them on the table. Were you Russian or Persian spies? He said musingly. You would have a more plausible story. You go too far, sir. You could not, in all honesty, disagree. My master's ongoing willingness to risk life, limb, and valet for a bet seemed to me the height of nonsense. I fear I did not keep my thoughts from my face as I saw Monsieur Fogg's cold glance in my direction. Monsieur Smythe, eyebrow raised, an eerie mirroring of my master's expression, and then he cleared his throat. A friend of mine is traveling to Omsk. I'd consider a great favor if you accompanied her. I was suspicious of a particular friend. Omsk is quite far. I could say that, I suppose. You could say that, I suppose. She is very particular, he chortled. Think on it. He dismissed us and returned to his papers without a second glance. Quite a commanding fellow for a mere second assistant political officer. What is that? Omsk. No, I must go to Delhi. That would be... I'm not going to Omsk. Oh, cool. That's what we're taking, huh? Mechanical Pelican. Lahore is the third city in the world to boast a zoo. The Grand Trunk Road stretching from Afghanistan to Bengal was an ancient trade route. The Marias had once used it to trade with ancient Greeks, and now it was crowded with vehicles. The British Empire had repaved and restored it for their own purposes. Mechanical palanquins laden with trade goods jostled alongside troop transports and Trevik steam carriages imported from England. All were brightly painted, each one a paean to garish ill taste, bearing an individual's mark. I had no doubt the traders and drivers, perhaps even their families, had mixed their own sweat and paint. The day's journey passed quickly, a blur of color and sound, and it was only this as the sun dipped below the horizon and the palanquins lit their phosphorus lamps that I realized we had reached the city of Lahore. How come that made my relations with him deteriorate? Now, why did I want to go to Delhi? I don't even remember why I wanted to go to Delhi now. Could have gone the other way. Through a series of circumstances too tedious to describe, I found myself lost in Lahore and rescued by a man who bore the name Azad, who to my luck spoke English like a native. Most here speak Punjabi, he told me, though the British have decreed the official language to be Urdu. Do you speak Punjabi too? Why isn't Punjabi official? I'm surprised that they have time to waste on such matters. I am lost. Surely that would be simpler. Not politically, he corrected. If you want to change a person's mind, you must change the language they think in. I thought on what he had said. Better to all speak the same. I would not give up French. I hazarded. Then we should all understand each other. There are some who think as you do, Monsieur, Azad shrugged. Language is not only a tool for conversation, but also learning, history, literature. It is culture itself, but then culture changes also, he sighed. I was once an idealist, but no longer. And why not? I wrote a poem, he said to me bleakly, and it ruined my life. Is that so? He had come from a family of intellectuals in Delhi. His father publicly supporting the Emperor Bahadur Shah against the British rule during the Indian Mutiny. Manjur Asad wrote a particular scathing quatrain in the Delhi Urdu Akhbar. The mutiny failed, and the British troops had entered their home, executed Azad's father, and exiled Azad. Wow. So I came to Lahore, and now I work for the British in the post office, he concluded gently. My father would be ashamed. Are you ashamed? No, I am not. He stood a little straighter. It is not such a bad life. I have found causes to fight for other than Indian independence. Then your father would be proud. You think so, Manjur? Assad looked wistfully. Thank you for saying as much in any case. It is a kind thing to do. We reached the main road and I found my bearings. Do not go to Delhi, he begged, seizing my hand. It swallows kind men like you. Where else would I go? I asked in astonishment. I am a traveler and Delhi is a well-connected city. You should continue through Benares rather than the capital, he insisted. It is only a day's journey from here by atomic. I took my leave from Manjur Azad from Lahore, but I had the strangest urge to speak French for days after, much to Manjur's chagrin. I don't remember why I wanted to go to Delhi, but this guy's advice seemed pretty important. Airship. I'm taking an airship. Heck yeah. We took a sleek, metal-clad Savakar atomic from Lahore to Benares. Captain Falguni was a loquacious woman and took pains to make us welcome, as she knew Manjur Azad, who had given me directions in Lahore. How is my good friend? Still a dreamer. Content in his position. Still a dreamer, I told her, though he would most likely deny it. I'm glad to hear you say it, she slapped me on the back. Perhaps he will write poetry again someday. I judged her age to be similar to that of Manjur Azad. Were you also part of the mutiny? Are you also a poet? Captain Falguni grinned and tucked her bright yellow scarf more securely about her neck. Do you know the ancient Bengali poet Chandidis? I do not. The youth is but a noon. Of night take heed. Thy youth is but a noon, of night take heed, a noon that is a fragment of a day. And the swift eve all sweet things bears away, all sweet things and all bitter, rose and weed. For others bliss who lives, he lives indeed. She gave me a challenging look after her quotation. Is better in Bengali, she said with a sigh, but perhaps my translation will serve. For others bliss who lives, he lives indeed. Heard of Bombay? We tethered at Benares a few hours later, sprawled on the banks of the Ganges, which curved a glittering trail over the horizon. The Astrolab can earn us well here. Worth 6,200. Yes, sell it. Heavy storm set, open road set, heavy storm set. Arrives Tuesday. The mechanical elephant departs for Calcutta tomorrow at 10 a.m. Confused. It says arrives Tuesday and it's Saturday. The Hindus believe that to die in the sacred city of Benares is to achieve salvation. I am not, Monsieur Fogg observed, at all certain that holds true for non-Hindus, so I do not recommend testing the hypothesis, Passepartout. He gave me a pointed look, and I puffed up in affront, and nodded in fervent agreement. I'm utterly cured of any need for adventure, I assured him. From now on I shall be the most level-headed, the most sensible, indeed, the most boring gentleman's gentleman a gentleman could ever wish to have. If adventure makes so much as glances in my direction, I shall give it the cut direct and no mistake. Monsieur Fogg looked for a moment as though some kind of spasm had come upon him. Do you need a handkerchief? I thumped him hard on the back. I asked, offering him one solicitously. He took it from my grip and pressed it against his face, though he did not sneeze. After a moment, he straightened up, his cool mask once more firmly in place. Passepartout, he said calmly, you are the most singular valet I have ever encountered. Now do fetch me a cup of tea. I often wonder about that moment in Benares. Are all English gentlemen so inscrutable, or have I chosen a particularly strange example of breed? Embark. We happen upon Chuni, the mechanical elephant, as she rather overshadowed the other vehicles and contraptions in Benares. A blonde-haired, thin-mustached colonial officer by the name of Sir Francis was already waiting to board her. We will cut through Jacquard Forest. The man out informed us we will be in Calcutta before you know it. Are you sure you know the way? Will it not be quite isolated? Yes, Mahout replied impatiently, which is why we will make good time. Sir Francis stroked his mustache and leaned closer. I have heard stories of bandits in the forest, he said consideringly. Still, perhaps they are native exaggerations. At least there will be 3 of us, at least there will be 4 of us. Quite right. There was nothing for it. All 3 of us, myself, Monsieur Fogg, and Sir Francis, mounted into the iron carriage, suspended within the cage of rotating gimbals, which comprised her belly. The cage kept the carriage from pitching and rolling. With Chuni's iron-footed gait, like a gyroscope, one could perch within. The Mahout scrambled up behind the pachyderm's padded neck, and we set off in a straight line toward Calcutta. I could not wish for a superior valet. We were 4 hours into the short cut through the Jacquard Forest when the Mahout called a halt. I listened out. Carefully, beyond the rustle of leaves and birdsong, I could hear the sound of cymbals and bells overlaid with voices raised in chant. The Mahout urged Chani behind some thick foliage and turned off her engine. She slumped into a guttering silence. Through the branches I saw a group of priests, more than 40 men and women. In procession, they had the look of rich mercenaries, but they were armed with naked sabers and long damasked pistols which they proffered to the priest for blessing. Behind the procession loomed a 4-armed mechanical Kali, with polished black skin, gleaming ruby eyes, and a protruding tongue the color of blood. The earth shook. She brandished wickedly curving blades. With each of her piston-driven steps and the string of bleached skulls around her waist rattled, she clutched the young woman whose head, neck, shoulders, ears, arms, hands, and toes were loaded down with jewels and gems, whose eyes were thickly cold. I don't know what that means. K-O-H-L-E-D. Decorated with coal, a girl with cold eyelashes. There is no... I guess that's the way they did their makeup. The Mahout stiffened. Sir Francis looked troubled. I have heard rumors that the Kali cult sacrifices virgins. The Mahout shook his head. She is no virgin. That is the widow of the Rajah. She looked very small and frail in the iron arm of the mechanical goddess, but was quickly lost from view. The Mahout began to start Chuni's engine when Monsieur Fogg said, "Suppose we save this woman." "How exactly?" I demanded with some excitement. "I see only one course. The project he then outlined was a bold one, not to say impractical. Monsieur Fogg was to risk life, or at least liberty, and therefore the success of his tour to rescue the lady. I was ready for anything that might be proposed. As for my master, I perceived a heart, a soul, under his icy exterior for the first time. We decided to wait till the early hours of the morning and spirit the woman away from camp when the mercenaries were asleep. Were we successful? Oh, we had to wait till morning. We crept up on the Kali box as they slumbered in a clearing beside a ruined temple. There were guards patrolling at each corner of the camp. A stealthy rescue would be impossible. I was seized with an admittedly foolhardy notion to ride Chuni into the camp, to disguise myself as a guard. Together with Monsieur Fogg and Sir Francis, we captured a guard whilst he was relieving himself against a tree. His clothes were loose fit, but serviceable enough in the dim morning light. I stole into the camp with soft, careful steps, but could not help a triumphant grin as I passed by without attracting undue notice. I found the young prisoner huddled in sleep and reached out to her shoulder to wake her. My fingers barely brushed her tunic when I felt my legs swept out from underneath me. I dropped to my knees. Quick as a panther, the woman leapt to her feet and pressed the edge of a gleaming curved blade to my neck. Her lips were drawn into a grin more bloodthirsty than ladylike. "Good morning," she said in cultured English tones. "A pleasure to make your acquaintance." And so we became to be prisoners of a Kali cult. In the forests of Jakar, the woman Aoda turned out to be the leader rather than the prisoner of this band of mercenaries. They had risen up against the British after the death of Aoda's husband, the Rajah. Despite her first fierce appearance, she left me my journal and pen. My documentary efforts seemed to amuse her, and she laughed heartily over my recent entries until she came to this one, featuring herself, her brow wrinkled. "We are not a Kali cult, Monsieur. Erase that." "Then who are you?" She gave me a sardonic look which encompassed me and my journal. "What exactly are you? A traveler, a storyteller?" She clapped me on the shoulder in maniac delight. "How very lucky for me that you became so unfortunately lost. My followers and I have very interesting story to tell." She left me with those words and moved on to interrogate Monsieur Fogg, who was attempting to sit very straight in his hempen bonds. As night fell in the forest, I feared she might hurt him, pondered the possibility of escape, pondered a life lived out here in the wilderness. Feared she might hurt him and could hardly sleep for worry. I'm in roaring health, but we must make haste. I woke to a strange scene. Aoda and Monsieur Fogg were sitting at the feet of the mechanical goddess, sipping tea and conversing. Inasmuch as my master conversed, I shared a look with Sir Francis. Who looked affronted, though that may simply have been the Englishman's thwarted desire for morning tea rather than any moral objection. Ada laughed and placed a delicate hand on my master's elbow. Mon Dieu, she was flirting! This was useful. I resolved to use her distraction to find a way out of our rather unfortunate situation, and enlisted the aid of our Mahout, who was, after all, a native and far more familiar with the forest and its environs. We made a plan to sham stomach pains and attempt to overpower the guards, when they approached. Suffice to say, the only result was a sharp thump with the butt of one of the mercenaries' pistols. I slept uneasily, contemplating more drastic action on the morrow. Ah, stuck here. How many days is this going to take? When I awoke, Monsieur Fogg and Iota were nowhere to be found. One of the mercenaries took me to a nearby stream for a wash. When I returned, Iota was standing in the middle of the camp. Monsieur Fogg was a few paces behind, looking as calm and unruffled, slightly disheveled. To my expert eye, was his cravat ever so slightly crooked? Quel horror! What horror? I think that's what that means in French. What horror? Mr. Fogg has explained your circumstances to me, she said, giving me a nod. I find your wager most amusing. We will convey you to Calcutta. I glanced at my master, whose cheeks were perhaps ever so slightly stained red. A telltale sign, though I would never be so indelicate as to suggest anything untoward had occurred between an English gentleman and a ranny-turned outlaw. The five of us, my master, Sir Francis, the Mahout, Iota, and myself, mounted the mechanical collie, who carried us with loping grace to the outskirts of Calcutta. I dare not approach the city. Your monarch has a bounty on my head, Iota said, as farewell. I hope you write my story well, Passepartout, she added before bestowing a wink upon Monsieur Fogg. Good luck. And to you, I called, though her band of freedom fighters were arrayed against the forces which my master held dearest. The crown, the empire, and the law. We walked the last mile or so, and finally arrived at our destination, the prosperous urbane city of Calcutta. My goodness. How dangerous. Opens at 7 a.m. Let's go to the hotel. Calcutta was an industrial city which had built its wealth on opium, textiles, and indigo, but that was not to say it was uncultured. The chai shops which I passed by, nothing compared to Paris, of course. The chai shops I passed by were all thronged with affluent babus and behenjis, discussing poetry and literature, and the sticky subject of Indian independence. It seemed there was discontent brewing. It seemed a natural outcome of events. And I said as much, to be loudly shouted down by several pro-British voices, who in turn were shouted down by those fervently in favor of self-rule. It was certainly a thorny issue, and I wondered if we would be able to avoid all consequences of it. Where is the most dangerous right now? Do you think there'll be trouble soon? I asked. Several voices agreed, but then several disagreed. It seemed there was no clear answer to be had here either. Only time would tell. I returned quickly to Monsieur Fogg, who was sitting staring into space with a faraway look. Perhaps he had not quite left our elephant behind. Ah. Oh, I thought I bought... Thought I bought the, Sea Dog types. Frequent flyer set. Peppermint tablet. American wardrobe. Oh, I can't buy that. I can't leave yet, huh? I thought I bought the China set. I spent a few hours in exploration, learning ways in which we might travel onwards. Arrives tomorrow at 9 a.m. What remained of the day, I attended to Monsieur Fogg, providing him with clipped moustaches. Alright. I don't understand how we're taking a boat through the land. We boarded the SS Thunder of the Apcar shipping line on its way to Hong Kong via Singapore. But the smokestacks barely had time to steam off their morning dew before we were approaching Chittagong to pick up more laborers. We made a full stop. We disembarked. We hid. Made our way into town. Chittagong had been under British control for over 100 years, but still I felt the hostility of the Bengalis as they fetched our bags, served us tea, and smiled. Monsieur Fogg remained characteristically ignorant, ignored their ill temper magnanimously. A tactic that was almost universally adopted amongst the colonial administrators, traders, and officers of the city. It was an odd sensation to be hated so impersonally, and so I took pains to be courteous, pretended calm indifference. But it had little effect on the tampered-down rage nestled in the corners of their mouths. More prosaically, we had been instructed to visit the visa office. So I hired a mechanical palanquin, much like the one we had taken along the Grand Trunk Road, and I was quite happily enjoying the tour when a thundering explosion rocked the city to the west. The streets flooded with soldiers and citizens, roiling in an uneasy mess. I leaped out of the palanquin, my curiosity overriding my other instincts, realizing I'd be swifter on foot, considering the thronged streets. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the spiral of smoke rising above the police armory, on the roof of which a man, which seemed to be the center of the disturbance, in pristine white kurta, performed a crisp military salute and raised a green, white, and red flag, the flag of the Indian nationalists. The people around me began to scream their support, and hundreds of white leaflets fell from the sky. I looked up for the source of the strange rain and saw a fleet of riders throwing leaflets from atop golden-bodied, eagle-like Garuda. I don't know what a Garuda is, but it's capitalized, so I'm assuming it's the name of a particular flying machine in the universe, in the lore. They left smudged trails of oil smoke in the sky. Elsewhere, the Garuda riders dropped explosives and flaming rags upon the telegraph office and railway station. It seemed the revolutionaries had effectively cut off Chittagong. We were trapped, and the city would, I feared, soon be ablaze. Relations are strengthened. Rise tomorrow. I want to go this way. As the nighttime in Chittagong was not quiet, as soon as the sun went down, the streets echoed with shouts and cries, stirring of a revolution. I sat up, guarding the door. I went to sleep early. There was no choice except to explore. Monkey wrench in hand, but Monsieur Fogg went promptly into his bed, declaring, "The British will keep control of the situation, I am certain." Had he forgotten this afternoon's events already? How could a gentleman's memory be so short? I don't want to go that way. I want to go through Singapore. Can I not go through Singapore? Monastic caravan. The British Army had closed down Chittagong's port and set up pickets, which prevented travelers from leaving the city. Luckily for us, the colonial governor had made an exception for monks, but no tyrant tyrannizes all. So, about to finish up day 35. Start day 35. I think this is a fantastic place to pause it, and I hope you guys are enjoying this. I'm very intrigued. As always, give it a big thumbs up, subscribe, and we will see y'all in the next one. Remember, kiddos, to keep moving forward!